Alright, so I want to talk a little bit more on some of the fundamental things on Android development. Alright, so this is actually one of the important topics we'll talk about in the class tomorrow, 356. Again, how many of you are in that class? I want to know how many of you are overlapped so that I don't talk too many repetitions. Okay, alright, so this is more kind of a design idea. Okay, I don't know if you heard about this term called MVC, Model View Controller. Now, in computer science, in software development, this is a very important design idea, a design principle. It's a very smart way, it's a very good way to manage your component, to manage your code. So the idea is, if you have a system, normally if you have a UI system, for example, a mobile app, or a kind of a desktop application, or even a website, if you have a UI view, you should actually follow this design called MVC. What it means that we want to divide your application into 3 components. One is called model, one is called view, the other one is called controller. All right, pretty easy to understand. Model is your data. All right, so think about your app. For example, we want to do this bill splitting app, and your model is going to be your bills, your users, your payment, those kind of stuff. Anything related with data is called a model. View, very easy, is basically your UI. What does it look like? All right, like the one we just specified XML, that is your view. And controller is the one that connects it to, bridges it to. It's more like in Android, your Java code. Basically specifies how you can interact with your view, and if I click on this button, how that click is going to change my data. So that is what controller does. All right. Now, you don't need to worry about all this connection, but it's pretty easy to understand. Most of the time we see a view, and we're going to interact with the view. Some of the operation we do is going to affect the model, and then some of the model, if the model got changed, for example, your email or your email in Google, if you got a new emails, your model got changed, and then your view will reflect that change. Okay, so these two things is always going to affect each other, but then they will need the help from the controller. Controller is more kind of manager to manage how the views should reflect change our model, and how the interaction is going to change the model, and then how the model is going to affect the views. All right. So this is the kind of a high-level idea on how you should structure and organize your code, your classes, your modules, whatever you call it. Okay. So you should follow this way to build your UI system, and then for the app, you should do the same. And then the nice thing is, Android has already been following this to build the Android project. As I mentioned, if you think about that XML file in the resource folder, that is your view. Now, if you think about the Java code, that is your controller. And the model, I haven't shown you the example, but I'm going to do that very soon. And if you can follow that same idea, your app will be well organized and it will be very well maintained. All right. So this is just another example on MVC model. Think about this is like a little Java, like with desktop application, not a mobile app, but also has a view, right? So this is your view, and you probably have a model to save all this data, and then you also have a controller to take care of all the interactions. All right. Again, just to give you an idea, this is the view, and then your keyboard is going to interact with the view, and then controlled by the controller, and then you have a database to save all the model, MVC. The benefits doing this is you have a very clear separation on these different things. If you want to change the model, you know where to change the model. And then the view always depends on the model. So you can have multiple views to reflect the same model. For example, this is a good example. You have this data here, but I can have different visualization to show the same model. And then you can have different developers work on different things. Maybe one developer work on this visualization, one work on this one work on the data. So for the view, they only need to take care of how do we render the view. How do we render the data? For the model, they only care about how do we structure the data, how do we save the data. All right, so they are not going to affect each other, they just depend on each other. So you will see if you follow this way to develop your code will be much more maintained. All right, so that basically means while you're doing your Android development, you have to follow MVC pattern, or you can call it MVC principles. All right, so I'm going to use an example to show you how you can do that. What do I mean by following MVC? All right, let me extend this out. So last time I showed you one single question, and one answer, one interaction. Now I want to extend it by having more questions. So I can have one extra button there called click next. And then if I click on next, I can move on to the next question. And of course, different questions have different answers. And I click on true or false, I can get my result. Okay, so this is the second app we're going to build today, which is a little bit more advanced than the first version. But this time, it's not one question. It has multiple questions. Let's take a look at how do we build it. All right. All right, so to build this, again, following MVC pattern. All right. When we talk about follow MVC, that means, first of all, you need to know where is your view. All right, that's pretty the easy part. Okay, the view is this. All right, you already know how to build a view. You have to build your view first. And in the Android, the view is handled by this XML file. All right, pretty straightforward. Now, once you have your view, you need to think about your model. All right, in this case, my model is going to be my questions. Each question has a title. Also, each question has a correct answer. Because like every question, the system needs to know what's the correct answer. Otherwise, I can't check it. Right? So these are the two things I need to record, and that's going to be my model. So when I tell you that you need to build your model for your application, I'm just telling you that you need to build dedicated classes for your data to represent your data, and that's going to be your model. All right, let me show you a concrete example. In this case, my data model is going to be my question. So I need to have an explicit class for something called question. All right, so I can even do a new package. For example, here I'm going to create a new package called model. All right, and then inside the model, I'm going to create a new Java class. I will call it question. If you're following MVC model, you do have to have this explicit classes for your model. All right, this class only handles the data, nothing else. This class has nothing to do with the view, has nothing to do with the interaction with the controller. All right, so let's think about what do we need for the question. Now we need a title. We also need a correct answer, which could be just a Boolean value. All right. All right, and then getter and setters. All right, hopefully you're doing this. All right, I'm going to talk more about why you do setters, getters in other class, but not this class. All right, so, but this is the best practice. So this class is very simple. You probably have done a lot of this type of classes. All right, class name, attributes, getter, and setters. But this is your model. Okay, so this MVC is not something like sophisticated. It's just a couple of best practices you need to follow. One of them is you need to build explicit classes for your data to record all the information you need. All right. Now, once you have this, you can even do something better. Okay, because we're not talking about one question. We're actually talking about the list of questions. Right? We have multiple questions, so we can even build another one called maybe question group, question set. All right, maybe that sounds better. For the question set, I have multiple questions. I can have a list. And then I can have something like add a question. For adding question, you have to tell me the title and also the correct answer. And then from there, I need to create my question. I need to set title. I need to set the correct answer. And then I need to add that into my question list. All right. I think I just need one add question. And of course, I have to instantiate that empty list. All right. So a question set class, I can just create a new array list, and then I can start to add questions. All right. And I also need to get question, right? So public void, actually question, get question. This one I can provide a index. Just simply return question list dot get index. All right. So these are the two functions we need for this question set. All right. Now, as you can see, both of the classes just handle the data, pretty simple, straightforward, only data structures, nothing related with the view. You can't even tell this is the Android class. All right, that's just called a model. And also, you want to put them together so that you can always go to the same place to modify them. All right. Now we got a model, we got a view, and we need to work on a controller. Controller obviously is this. Okay, so you basically should handle what you want to do when you click on this, when you click on that. Oh, before we do that, I forgot we need to add one more button here, which is the next. All right, so I need to do button next. Right? And give an ID next button. All right, so we finish our view. I'm going to come back to my main activities. All right, so let's start to change the program. Now I need to load a lot of questions. Sorry, I need to come back. Like this one, instead of one question, I need to have multiple questions. And then I already built a class that allows me to basically add those questions, so I can start to do this. Create the instant variable question set. All right, and question set equals the new question set. I can start to add question. First question is going to be the CPP has the largest campus in the CSU system. The correct answer is false. All right, let's add another question. NYC is the largest city in the US. Is that correct or not? No? I thought that's correct. All right, so let's put it correct. CS is the hottest major currently. I'll put it true. CS 499 is not the best course in CS at CBB. Alright, that's false. Give me one more. Let's do the Alright, everyone in CS 499 will publish an app in Google Play. Alright. Okay, so very quickly, why this one has this? Oh no, okay, I don't need this. It's auto completion. So, all right, so now I go to my question set. All right, so this is good. This is my model. Then the controller, because they need to access the model every time, especially when you click on the next button, you're going to show the right question. All right. So now, as you can see previously, if you look at our view, all right, this question has been hard-coded in the view. It's definitely not going to be the best practice, because if you always do this, you have to create 5 screens for 5 questions, 5 views. Okay, But then now you have a model, so your view only going to display whatever the model you provide. Okay, so that means we need to program to control what kind of question to display. So I need to control this text view. Given ID, I'm going to call this the question text view. All right, and come back to my activity. All right, I need to say that if current question is the second one, I'm going to display this one. If the current question is the fourth one, I'm going to display this one. So that means I need to basically control which question I'm actually looking at. And we can control that by index. So I need another variable here called index. Current question index. All right, which starts from 0. All right. Now, if you know this, we need to change our text, the question text, based on the current index. How? Well, we need to change that text view. All right. So I just told you this is the one that controls the title. I give an ID called QuestionTextView, so we can do this. Text view QuestionTextView equals to font view by ID r.id.QuestionTextView. Exactly the same way. You use the ID to return the view, and then you assign that to this object called QuestionTextView. If you have the access, then you can do whatever you want. Click on dot. As you can see, the very first one is probably the one you will need, which is the set text. That's going to be how you can change the text stored in this view. All right, you can provide all different things. You can provide an int, you can provide a character sequence, which is kind of like a string, all of those. I'm going to use this one, and then you need to provide that actual title. So the title comes from my question set, and also the question set, I need to know where is the current question is. So I will do something like this: question set dot get question dot current question index. All right, that's going to give me a question object. Remember, this one here gave me a question object, and then from there I can call get title, and that's going to give me a title. So dot get title. All right. So this is how we can use a program to update that text view based on the current index. All right. So let's run this. Make sure everything works. All right. So now we have the same question, but this time it should come from that index. So for example, if I change that one into 3, right? All right, so this is the fourth question in our list. Okay. All right, so if you know this one, then the next question is, well, how do we change the questions? So you change the question whenever you click on the button to next. All right, so we need to accept that button. So we're going to do something similar. Button, next button. I'm going to repeat this. Font view by ID, r.id.next button. All right, from there, next button. This is probably the only thing you would do with the buttons, onClick. Okay, set onClick listener, new space, control space, hit enter, and then you got that block. All right, so what we should do in that list, in that listener, so we need to increase the index. So current question index increased by 1, and then after that, you refresh the question view, something like this. All right, so you can do this again right here. Okay, but that's kind of duplicated. So what you can do is I can move this one as a class instance variable. So normally you would define this one here at the top level. So we can access this anywhere we want. All right, so we don't have to do this again. Increase the index and then set the text. All right, let's try this. I'm going to start from 0, run my code. This is the first question. I click on next, next question, third question, fourth question, and then this is the last question. All right. Now, the true false is not working. Right now, it's still, if I click on true, it shows me incorrect. If I click on false, it shows me correct. But the right way is I need to check the correct answer, because that question actually tells me what is the correct answer. Okay? So to do that, let me delete some of this. If you click on true, I need to look at the correct question, correct answer. If the correct answer is also true, then you're good. Otherwise, it's wrong. Okay, so here's the logic. If, again, I need to know the current question. So question group set get question, current question index, dot is correct answer. If that is true, and then I'm going to show that is correct, because you click on true. Otherwise, incorrect. All right, do this again. If question set get question current question index dot get is correct answer equal to false, and you are in the false button, that's great. So your answer is correct. So that is correct. Otherwise, it is incorrect. All right. Let me run this again. So CPP is the largest. That's not true. So I'm going to click on false. All right, so correct. And I move on next one. New York City is the largest. That's true. So I click on true. That is correct. But if I click on false, that's incorrect. And CS is the hottest major. Yes. So that's correct. This is incorrect. And then CPP, not best course, that's false. So that is correct. And then this is incorrect. Last question, everyone will publish. Yes, that's correct. And then this one incorrect. All right. And then if I do next, oops, stop. All right, so I did this on purpose. So some of you probably figure out the reason. Now, you will see this kind of little pop-up box crash pretty frequently in the very beginning. Whenever you see this, all right, don't be surprised. That means something is going wrong in your code. It's kind of a runtime error, which means your code compiles, but some of the logic goes wrong. For example, you have a null pointer exception. For example, you have a out of range exception. Things like that. All right. So whenever you see this, guys, very important. First thing to look at is your logs. Okay, you can't really tell what's going on if you don't look at the logs. Logs is your friend. Go back to your Android Studio, open Logcat. All right, and then clear all the keyword stuff. If you have a crash, there has to be a red stuff like this, as you can see here. Okay, this is not that unfamiliar, right? So this is your typical Java exception. That's your error. And then if you really want to filter the error, you can do things like this. Go to warning. You're not going to see all those unrelated information. You only see the warning and the errors. As you can see, there is an exception called index out of bound exception. Pretty easy to understand because your list has 5 elements. If you keep going, when you go to the 6th one, it's going to out of bound. That's why it shows runtime error. You've probably seen this error in the regular Java as well. But the Android, if you see that, then Android doesn't know how to do it because this is a pretty serious thing. It doesn't know how to run it, so it has to crash to let you know. That's when you see this little screen here. All right. Whenever you see the box, go back to your lag to see what's going on. Normally, you find a very clear exception. You can even use this line here to locate where it caused that problem. Because this one here, you can see, get that index. Well, at that time, your index probably is more than 4. So that's why it goes out of bounds. All right? And then if you're going to go here, that's where initially trigger the problem, because you increase the index and you use that index to get the next question. You're running out of a question, then you're done. Okay? How do we fix this? Let's do this. What if I want you to connect the next? If it go to the end, it go back to the first one. Well, so you can do all different ways. If current question index is greater than 4, well, I'm just going to reset it. All right, so that's going to fix it. If I do this, next, and I can go back and forth, right, without any errors. But the way I write here is not really good. Tell me, how can I improve here? This one here. Why do I think this part here is not really good? All right, so these lines, the way I fix it. Yes. Can you repeat that? Oh, okay, good point. All right, so that could be one. So basically, you're saying that you should go to make it here, right?
Yeah.
You can do that, but then the thing here is, maybe not for this case, because this is a special logic on how I want to go to choose which question. Because I want this one to loop. So I think it's also reasonable to put it here. All right, unless you want to require that to be inside, you can also do that. All right, but as you can see, I haven't really supplied, because I only have a get question method. You can say you only get. I don't have a next question method here, or I can create one, but that's not really the problem here. Okay, but there's another, not really a big problem, but if you see this kind of a code. Very good, right? In the actual code, you do not want to see a lot of this type of numbers, the specific numbers. All right, if you see this, for me, whenever I see that number, I feel very, very strange. All right, you don't have that feeling because you haven't done a lot of code. You haven't seen a lot of good code. In the professional code, this type of number, we call it the magic number. All right, meaning, why do you have this number here? Okay, you only can have 0 or 1, or sometimes at most 2. If it's a 0 and 1, you probably can use it, because especially 0 probably means something special. You do not have to explain it. But other than 0 or 1 or 2, other numbers, if you put it in the code, it's called a magic number, because probably you are the only one that can understand why you want to use 4 or 20 or 22. Okay, you have to replace and get rid of that magic number. Okay, this is the more thing that we'll talk about in another course, is about how do you write a good code, the clean code. But I just want to also point out something here, that as you do the coding, this is a correct, but not good. Because if I go here and add another question, all right, I get another question. Everyone in CS 480 will also publish an app in Google Play. Well, that's probably false, because we don't use Google Play. And if you do not change this one, you got a bug. All right, so this is called not a bad code, because your code, this one depends on the other one, and then not every developer will remember or know to change all the places. So the right way to fix is question set dot size. Oh, I didn't provide that, so I have to go back and add one. All right, just get size. All right, here I will do that size. All right, so same thing. You're not adding new feature. It's just a better code. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah. Good point. All right. And let me ask you another thing. How can you? All right. Yeah. Now I remember. Right now, in order to do this loop logic, I use a total of 4 lines of code. Okay, pretty good. So I increase, I detect that ending and then reset it. How can I replace the 4 lines of code with 1 line of code? How? How do I write that one? All right. So sorry. So read that again. Oh, do if. Uh-huh. Oh, it's the same. Oh, you mean the same? And then.
Oh, no, sorry. The current question index equals. Sorry.
Oh, this one.
If it isn't set it with if.
Oh, you mean this? Oh, this line, right? Okay.
The if, the new if they
Okay.
but instead of writing the word if,
Right.
your current question index equals.
Oh, okay. Assignment. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. No.
The statement.
Oh, you mean do this, right? And you use the colon. Okay. This is fun, but this one is very similar to this one. All right. There's a better one, shorter one than that. Good. Good answer. But there's even better one than that. This one? Is that correct? Is that right? Try it. Right now, the first one is 0, right? 0%, 5, 0. This is correct? Well, yeah. I click on next, nothing happened, right? If you use a 0. Oh, yeah. So how can I put that one here? Yeah. So that's it. So if you do this, try it. Right? All right. So this is just a model, right? Is everyone clear about this one? Try it. Just get a reminder. But the trick is if when it's less than the size, it's still the same value. But once you get to the side, over the side, it's going to reset. Okay, so it's just a little smart way to write the code. But it doesn't matter. You do not have this one is fun. Okay, this is the more kind of a trick. Okay, when we're talking about a good code, we're not talking about this one. Okay, this one is called good code. Basically, you know to use the right method to replace some of the constant. This one is okay. If you know this one, you can write it. If not, doesn't matter. Okay, from the performance point of view, design point of view, it doesn't make any difference. But it's just something special that sometimes maybe can help you to write a simple code, right? Because this one can get rid of the if statement. All right. So I'm gonna use this one here for now to get a kind of a shorter code. All right. So that's pretty much our second version of the app. Now, before we move on next, I want to talk more about the code. So let's take a look at the code. Tell me what else I can improve. What else I can do better in terms of a good code, clean code? Not the logic is that we're done. Functional, everything is already good. What about this part? If I'm talking about this part, what I can do to make it better? Yes. Yeah. Good point. All right. So when you look at these two pieces of code, they're too similar. All right. Having similar code when you write the code is not a good thing. All right. So we have a term called clone or clone code, meaning that the code looks either exactly the same or similar. This is not exactly the same, but it's very, very similar. This is the only difference. Okay. Other than that, it's all the same. We do not want you to have duplicated code or similar code. The reason is if you have this one very similar, one point if you need to change one of them, you probably have to change the rest of those. Now, for example, if I told you, well, I don't want to do the toast message, I want to change some dialogue. Most likely, finishing this one change, you have to do the same change again, which is kind of tedious and not necessary. If you only have two, that's okay, but sometimes the duplicate code could have many more in all different locations. That's when really where the problem happens. Okay, so to get rid of duplicate code, pretty simple. We just need to define a method to do it, right? So I can do something like this. I can create a new method, check correct answer. So all you need to tell me is when you click, what's the answer you put. So Boolean value, chosen answer. Okay, if you click on true, you basically choose true. If you click on false, you choose false. And then inside that method, I can just do this. So if that correct answer, the current correct answer is your chosen answer, and then I'm going to display correct. Otherwise, I'm going to display incorrect. So with that, I can replace this one with a function call. I'm going to call it check correct answer true, and then this one here, check correct answer false. This is how you get rid of the duplicated code, because now if I need to make the same change, instead of a toast message, I do something else. I just need to change this one place. All right, the other 2 places remain the same. All right, so just to run it again, make sure everything works. All right, I think it works. So that's that kind of completes our next app. Other things you want to improve, again, normally for this type of button stuff, you can define those as instance variable, because you might need those in some other places. Okay, so true button and false button, next button. All right, that's one thing. What else I can improve? Or maybe this one, is kind of too much to put it here. You can also extract it, put into a different method. Or I'm going to call it private void initialize question set. All right, I'm going to remove all of those. call it initialize question set, and then do it right here. All right. So one of the rules when you write code is you do not want to have the method too long. Okay, long method, long class is not a good thing either. All right, so we'll talk more about those. All right. Any questions? Yes.
Not in this case, but this we can do that on the method on the name. Use the method there, and suppose we have like a 10 button something, then we share one complete method.
Oh, so are you talking about to have this part also extracted?
Yeah, exactly. Like
yeah.
Use the in the XML file, use the complete method there. We can use that. Complete, from the name.
Oh, you mean this one?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Button.
Mm-hmm.
On the button, just click on click. Just enter and complete. Yeah,
okay.
Use this method. And
oh, you can just type a method. Oh, great.
Maybe use same name. Okay, use your 10 buttons.
Okay.
Use the same like a method. You can share the method.
Oh, I see. So let's try it. I know what. Let's try it. So basically, you're saying that we can do.
You don't have to use the set something.
Okay. Okay, I can. Okay, I can see like check answer, right?
Yeah.
Not yet. Okay, I do check answer, and then here I can do check answer. What should I do here? Oh, can I do check answer? Oh, I need to have this. Okay, I'm gonna create this method called view. Yeah, right. So, all right. So that will automatically link this to this method, right? Okay, and then I can do. Right. So I can just do this. But then this one, everyone has to have. I can't pass parameters here, right?
I remember you can.
Oh, you can.
I don't remember. I think you can share the same method actually.
But then how can I like pass the input?
I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah, there might be a way. Okay. Great point. Yeah. So that's one supported by Android. In the future, we'll also talk about another library can actually do the same thing. Okay. But great. So for now, I'm not going to do it. So that we do not feel too overwhelmed. But the idea here is instead of doing this kind of a tedious structure, you can just create a method and then link them together. Okay. But that's great.
I can do the button by like inside the function. You can say button, like make a name that equal to file view by ID something. Then you can define use the same method, but you have like a different button. Use the same method.
Okay, got it. All right. All right. Yeah. All right, very good. Yeah, so the XML has a lot of more property that we haven't really touched yet. That's definitely going to be a lot cleaner than you write things like this. All right, but let's I'll also find more example. Maybe we can talk more about that next time. All right, so but then back to that idea about MVC. Okay, eventually if you look at the code, so here is your model, 2 classes. Here is your view, and then finally you're building and writing your controllers. That's how you actually split all the logic. All right, always follow MVC. You should have very clear model, classes, view, and also the rest part go to the controller. All right, so these are the same thing. All right, any questions about MVC or this example? All right. So one more topic to mention, still something basic about Android. So you need to understand something called LifeCycle used by Android. So Android, I already mentioned you have this activity. Each activity represents one screen, controls one screen. It has the view, it has a lot of the controller, and now we also talk about the data. So when you basically click on your app, and in this case, let's come back to the phone. So you should be able to find out that app, which is this one here. This one, Basic Android demo. All right. So if you click on this app, and it's going to run your application. All right. Now you need to know a little bit, have better understanding on this whole life cycle, basically from the start of the app to the current running, and eventually to the end of the app when you stop it. All right. So most of this process and the life cycle is handled by Android. So we do not need to worry about how do we start, which method to call, which method to call next. And so in Android, you should be familiar with some of these terms here I listed. So every activity, once you launch the activity, the very first thing you need to do is something called onCreate. And then followed by that, you have to call another method called onStart and onResume. And then you go to a kind of running stage. And when you try to stop or pause, you have something called onPause, onStop, and then eventually onRestore. And then your activity is done. All right. So from the moment you start the activity, start an app, start a screen, to the moment you close it, there are a lot of different stages and events going on in the middle. So sometimes we need to do specific things at different stages. The best example would be onCreate. Normally we have to create a lot of initial data, just like the question set. You have to do it at the very beginning. Okay, you can't wait till the activity starts and the user start to interact. You haven't set your question, then you don't have a question. So you really have to do those things before you run your actual activity, letting the user to interact. So that's when you need to put something in the very beginning, like onStart, onCreate. Or at the very end, right before you close your app, sometimes we need to do some cleanup, or we need to do some backup in order to not losing some of the data. So before you close and shut down your app, I have to send some of the data to, for example, to the backend to save it, to backup, so that next time you can still have it. So we need to know when you're going to destroy the app, and then we can inject some of the code to these stages. All right. So because Android wants to provide a very flexible way for the developers to do all of these things at the right time, so Android provides you all these little moments and the message that you can put and fill some of the actions into each of the message. So for example, if you want to do something in the very, very beginning, you use that thing called onCreate. Or if you want to do something right before you destroy the application, you use that thing called onDestroy. So here, let me show you how this thing works. So that kind of explains why in your activity class, you have this thing called onCreate. And why the things you put here will be executed first. Because this onCreate is a standard stage happening in the very beginning of a life cycle for an activity. Okay. Everything you put here will be executed first and line by line. But then besides onCreate, you also have other things. For example, let's try this. Everything has already been defined in the activity called in a class called activity. So if you look at this app comp activity, which is the parent class, if you open that activity, there is another parent class called fragment activity, another one called base fragment activity, all the way to support activity, eventually activity. This is the top level class. There is actually one more, but that's not important. The activity has everything on start, on restart, things like this. All right. So let me close. All right. So which means you can override those. So go to the IDE. You can just autocomplete by override method. And then if you type onStart, you can also do onResume. Oh, sorry, not onPost. And then others like onStop. Or maybe one more onDestroy. All right. So this method, you don't have to use them. But if you do need to inject something into it, you can put your code there. All right, let me show you an example. For example, in the very beginning, I can say, well, I want to log a information on create, so that you can see this one has been triggered. This one is called on start. This one is called on resume, and then on stop, and then finally on destroy. All right. Now, if I start to run my application this time, let's start to watch the log. I'm going to use the test to filter it. Right. All right, as you can see, once the app starts, first is on create, second on start, and then next one is on resume. That shows you the order of this method being executed. All right, this one first, second, and next. Now, when I start to create the app, for example, I click on the home button, on stop. All right, but then you don't see that on destroy. That means this app has not been destroyed. All right, so why? Because it's actually still in the background. So if I go and find this app, click on the back, as you can see, it does this on create, on start again, but not on create. And let me try one more. And if I do this to quit the app completely, on stop, on destroy. All right. And by doing this, you probably can notice that different stages have different properties. The onCreate is not called every time we open the activity. It's only called when the first time you trigger that activity. But just like what I showed, if you start the activity but then you switch to the other app, if this activity is still in the background running, then next time when you resume it, you're not going to do the onCreate. You probably will start from here, on start. That's why you have these three different things in the start. Okay, otherwise, you having one is enough. All right? And the same thing here. Not every time when you close the app, you will destroy it. It's only that when you're forced to destroy it, it will destroy it. If you don't destroy it, this onDestroy will not be called. All right, so let me show this one more time so that you'll be clear. So let me delete the messages. All right, I'm going to open this app first time on create, start, resume. If I simply go home, it's stopped. And then if I try to resume that, it's do the start and resume, but not on create because I already created it. It's still in the memory. It was just in the background. All right. But if I try to force close this one, now for example, now this time, let me try this. I can go home, stop, but still in the background. But if I click on this, and if I try to shut down this, there is onDestroy. All right. So for different stage in the life cycle, we call different method. So for developers, now it's great because we can inject all different code at different stages if you need. All right. Although most of the time you only need onCreate. Most of the time you can use onCreate to take care of most of the things. But sometimes you definitely need to handle onStart, onResume. Especially, for example, your app is doing something right now, but if you go to background, it stops to refresh, stop to synchronize some of the data. So whenever you come back, you have to make sure you reconnect and refresh it. So that's when you need to use this method. And for onDestroy, on stop, it's pretty important for you to use to back up some of the data to make sure you're not losing some of the data. All right. So this is called Android LifeCycle. So activities, one class has LifeCycle. There's another class called Fragment. And for now, if you're not familiar with Fragment, let's not worry about that. Just use the activities. Also had a bunch of life cycle stages. One more thing called Android Service. Okay, that one also has some of the cycle. So, but the idea is the same. So Android define these things. All right. And then if you understand this, also you need to know this method. We are never going to call this method. Okay, you can't call this thing in your code. It doesn't make sense. If you call onStart, you call onStop. You don't do that because these are triggered by Android. All right, when your app is running inside Android, Android will know when to call this one, when to call that one. Give you an example. Sometimes we may run a lot of applications. For example, let me open more applications. I'm going to open the gallery, and then I go ahead to open music. I go ahead to open more stuff. What else? Messaging. All right. And then this time, if I go to this button, as you can see, there are actually a lot of apps in the background. All right. In iPhone, same thing. All right. The reason is because Android is trying to keep most of the apps alive, so that we will try to go back. For example, I come to back music. I don't have to recreate everything. It's already there. It's faster, right? So better performance. So Android did this for us to optimize the whole experience of using the phone. However, it's impossible for Android to store everything always in the background because you always have limited memories. You can't save everything. So at one point, Android needs to delete and destroy some of the activities. But that's controlled by Android. If Android see that now the memory I'm over this threshold, I can't hold more, and then I have to decide which one to close. It's not always the earliest one. Android has its own algorithm to decide which one is more likely to be reused or not. So Android will decide. So you never know. Android would decide to close that, destroy that, and then as long as you have your code in that on-destroy method, you're good because Android will call it at the right time. Okay, so never call these things by yourself. These are triggered and called by Android operating system. All right, so that's why every time when you create a new class or a new activity, you need to work on this method called onCreate, not anything else. Because if you create your own method, Android doesn't know to call that one. It will only start from here, and then from here you can call other things. All right, so let's show one more example. Let's say that let's just show you a brand new class. Okay, so I'm going to create a new activity from scratch. So this time I'm going to create a layout resource file. I call it activity underscore maybe just call it a splash screen. Okay, and I'm going to put just a text there, and I'll call it welcome, and let's maybe put the center. Yeah, very simple. I'm not gonna decorate this, but this is the new view for a new activity, and I do need to create a new class, so I will call it splash activity. This one is going to extend the same thing app compact activity. All right, so this is your class. Every activity had to extend the Android activity class. Otherwise, you're not part of the Android ecosystem. All right, and then by extending this, you also need to override that onCreate method. You have to do that for every single class. Okay, override onCreate, and that's it. And then from there, you have to set your layout. So set content view r.layout.activity splash. That's the one I specified right here. That's how you can connect the two together. And now you build your activity. Okay, so this is the process. You do something from scratch. Create the activity, extend the parent class, and then override onCreate. One more thing, you have to define your new activity here. Okay, in the manifest file, every time you create a new activity, you have to tell Android, all right, I got a new activity. So do a tag activity. We're going to ask you the name, which is this one, splash activity, and that's it. All right. But right now the problem, if I run my application, if I do it, it's still going to show the old activity at the start. The reason is this: in the manifest file, you see this thing called intended future, and you have action, main, category, launcher. That's just like a main method. So if you put this in here in this activity will be your main activity, your main method. But if I move this one to this activity, and that activity will be triggered first. All right, so that's a new activity with only a message. All right, so that's kind of give you an idea on how this manifest file works, because you have to define all the activity and tell Android which one is the first one to run. So we'll talk more on what does this mean, and also we'll talk about how do you transition between the two activities. It's all pretty simple. All right, but maybe we'll talk about that next time. All right, any other questions? All right, so let's actually stop here because that gives us a kind of good